Episode 10, Echoes in the Dark. The silence in the cave felt eternal. The cold stone floor pressed against Evelyn's back as she lay there, staring up at the rough ceiling. She had lost track of time, whether it had been hours or days since Lucas had left, she couldn't tell. The air felt thick with the lingering presence of the Hollow Man, though his form had vanished into the fissure below. In the quiet, Evelyn's thoughts were no longer her own. They drifted, pulled in strange directions, as if the cave itself had a mind, guiding her memories and emotions. She thought of her father, of how he had spent his life trying to protect her from this place, from the dark legacy of their family. But he had failed, and now she was here, alone, bound to the curse, like a living sentinel. A faint rustle in the cave snapped her from her reverie. Her heart leaped into her throat as she sat up, eyes scanning the darkness. For a moment, she thought it was Lucas, maybe he had returned, unable to leave her behind. But as her eyes adjusted to the dim light, she saw nothing. No shadowy figure, no whisper of movement. The cave was still. But something was different. The air felt charged, heavy with a presence that wasn't her own. The shadows along the walls seemed to pulse, their shapes shifting in ways that made her stomach churn. It was subtle, almost imperceptible, but the feeling that she was being watched gnawed at her mind. Evelyn slowly rose to her feet, her hands trembling slightly. The flickering torchlight cast long, distorted shadows across the cave's jagged walls. The runes on the altar were still faintly visible, but they had lost their glow, leaving only the cold stone. The whispers came again, so quiet they could have been mistaken for the wind. But Evelyn knew better. She had heard these voices before, voices from the shadows, from the darkness beyond the Hollow Man. They had called to her before the ritual, and now they were back. This time, they weren't just whispering her name. They were saying something else, something she couldn't quite make out. "Who's there?" Evelyn called, her voice echoing through the cave. The whispers stopped, as if acknowledging her presence. She moved cautiously toward the altar, her eyes darting around the room, searching for any sign of movement. The oppressive feeling of being watched grew stronger with each step. Her pulse quickened, and her mind raced. Was the Hollow Man trying to reach her again? Had the ritual failed? No, she reminded herself. The Hollow Man was bound, sealed, beneath the earth. He couldn't escape, at least not yet. But that didn't mean she was safe. The cave was old, ancient even, and it had been the site of countless rituals before hers. The darkness here was deep and restless, and Evelyn was beginning to understand that the Hollow Man wasn't the only force at play. She reached the altar and placed her hand on the cold stone. The binding rune was still there, but something about it felt wrong. The intricate lines of the rune seemed to shimmer faintly, as if they were shifting beneath her touch. The whispers returned, louder this time, though still indecipherable. They swirled around her, a cacophony of voices overlapping and growing in intensity. Her pulse raced as she pulled her hand back, stumbling away from the altar. The ground beneath her feet felt unstable, as though the cave was breathing, alive in some dark, unnatural way. The whispers rose to a fevered pitch, and suddenly, Evelyn could make out a single, clear word among the noise. Release. Her blood ran cold. The air around her thickened, and the shadows on the walls began to move, stretching and twisting unnaturally. It was as if the cave itself was reacting to her presence, the ancient forces within stirring after centuries of slumber. She could feel them, watching, waiting, testing her resolve. Evelyn's chest tightened as the word repeated, louder now, echoing in the chamber. Release. She took a step back, her mind racing. What was happening? The ritual had worked, she had bound the Hollow Man. But now, something else was awake. Something older, something far more dangerous. Evelyn felt a cold chill snake down her spine. It wasn't just the Hollow Man that had been trapped here. The ritual had stirred something else, something that had been lying dormant beneath the earth for far longer than the Hollow Man had been bound. The runes, the binding spell, it wasn't just to contain the Hollow Man. Her father's notes had warned about other entities, ancient and malevolent forces that thrived in the darkness. Forces that couldn't be controlled or bargained with. And now, they were awake. The shadows on the walls grew darker, and more defined, as if they were solidifying into something tangible. Evelyn could feel them closing in, and for the first time since entering the cave, true fear gripped her heart. She turned and ran, her footsteps echoing through the cavern as she fled toward the entrance. Her only thought was to escape, to get out of this cursed place, before whatever was lurking in the shadows could reach her. But as she approached the mouth of the cave, she skidded to a stop. The entrance was gone. The once open passageway had vanished, replaced by solid rock as if the cave itself had sealed her in. Panic flared in her chest, and she slammed her fists against the cold stone, screaming for help. But the cave didn't respond. The shadows crept closer, their whispers growing louder. Release. Evelyn backed away from the sealed entrance, her breathing ragged. The shadows were no longer just figments of her imagination, they were real, creeping along the walls and floor, slithering like dark tendrils, reaching for her. The cave had become her prison. And whatever was inside it wanted to be free. Desperate, she turned back to the altar, her mind racing for a solution. There had to be something she missed, some part of the ritual that would stop this. She couldn't let whatever was awakening escape, it would be worse than the Hollow Man. She could feel it, deep in her bones. The whispers grew louder, almost deafening now, as the shadows closed in. And then, through the chaos, a single thought broke through the fear: what if it's already too late? End of episode 10.